Kia ora, good evening. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand is the first country in the OECD to act, lifting the official cash rate by 0.25% today to help contain rising inflationary pressures.
The Reserve Bank today is increasing the official cash rate by 0.25% to 2.75%. This is needed to help contain the rising inflation pressures associated with the strong economic expansion that is becoming increasingly broad-based. Several factors are driving this expansion. Our terms of trade are at a 40-year high. Dairy prices are up 43% over the past 12 months, and prices of most of our other commodities are strong. The decline in policy rates to a 50-year low has stimulated demand. Residential investment is up around 40% over the past 2 years, and investment in Christchurch reconstruction is expected to be $1.5 billion higher than last year. And the rapid increase in net immigration over the past 18 months is boosting housing and consumer demand. Business and consumer confidence is at multi-year highs, and hiring and investment intentions are increasing. We are seeing some moderation in the housing market. Loan-to-value restrictions are starting to ease pressure, and rising interest rates will have a further moderating influence. However, the rise in net immigration flows are adding to housing pressures. Inflation pressures are starting to increase and are expected to do so over the next 2 years. We want to keep inflation expectations contained. In order to do this, we need to raise interest rates to a level where they are no longer adding to demand. How much and how fast we need to raise rates will depend on the data and our assessment of emerging inflation pressures. Our clear goal is to contain inflation, and in doing so, help ensure that the economic expansion can be sustained for as long as possible.
Southern District Health Board has been allocated funding from the Ministry of Health to perform an additional 135 colonoscopies, specifically to address those patients who have been waiting longest for urgent and non-urgent procedures at Southland Hospital. Clinical leader for gastroenterology, Dr. Jason Hill, says the introduction of national access criteria and establishment of a single point of triage has gone some way to create a sustainable, transparent and more equitable service, and this extra funding will allow the service to achieve in 3 months what would otherwise have taken 2 years. Food prices fell 1% in February but were up 0.2% on a year ago.
February saw cheaper beef down 4.6% and lamb falling 9% according to Statistics New Zealand. Cheaper apples and tomatoes were the main contributor to the 5.9% fall in fruit and vegetable prices, while restaurant meals and ready-to-eat food also fell, down 2%. There was a 7% rise in non-alcoholic beverages, while snack foods and sauces also recorded higher prices. The price of boxed chocolates falls every February due to Valentine's Day, this year falling 21%.
Government this week introduced a bill to Parliament that will strengthen penalties for failing to comply with health and safety regulations in the workplace. The introduction of the Health and Safety Reform Bill is intended to substantially improve workplace health and safety, particularly in high-risk industries like forestry. Stronger penalties, enforcement tools, graduated offence categories and court powers puts more accountability in those in control of a business unit and more onus on managers and company directors to manage risk and keep workers safe, while workers themselves will be more involved in workplace safety education. The bill elevates the responsibility of employers, but there's a generation of habits to change, according to one local union representative.
The bad habits have been out there for an awful long time. When I first came to Southland, I was working at TY, and back in those days they were buying health and safety off workers, and I think they're still doing the same thing. Anyone that saw Campbell Live this week would have been made aware by Russell Smith that the $8,000 bonus at Pike River was responsible for holding people there when most of them wanted to get out of the place.
Let's talk about the employee responsibility as opposed to the employer. If they have targets to reach and bonuses that are available if they have a low count for health and safety records, and also ACC levies for the employer, how can that have an impact on this?
Well, ACC levies for employers, I mean, I don't know whether you're aware of the employer accreditation program, but employers get substantial rebates through handling their own ACC. And in theory, they're audited to ensure that they're keeping the standards up. Now, I've been involved with exercises where they've been getting away with all sorts of things from a health and safety perspective. And even though I make the auditor aware of it, it doesn't seem to have an effect. So I think there needs to be a lot more accountability there. It appears to me that arising out of the Royal Commission, things are slowly changing, but as I said before, we've got a generation of workers to change. And when you're dealing with the authors to the problem, it's very difficult to effect change. And hopefully the fact that the onus of responsibility has been elevated to director level, that maybe have the desired result, because it hasn't been happening of recent times.
The bill's expected to pass into law by the end of the year and come into force in April 2015. There's a target to reduce workplace injury and death by 25% by 2020. Stay with us. Still to come on the bulletin, photographer Ans Westra is in the south touring her Full Circle exhibition. Welcome back. Iconic New Zealand photographer Ans Westra is in the south to reconnect with her photographic subjects from the last 50 years. The Dutch-born photographer has called New Zealand home since the 1950s and has since documented everyday New Zealanders in numerous publications. Westra's latest publication, Our Future, contains 137 often damning images of the impact of human intervention on the landscape of New Zealand. Hunter Andrews asked the photographer for her feelings on reconnecting with her photographic subjects from the last 50 years.
It's rather fun when you're somewhere having a meal and somebody comes up and says, I was that little boy in that picture. Yes. So it's lovely to see people again and photograph new people, really.
You're here at the Southern Institute of Technology. We can probably hear the students around us. You're keen to impart your knowledge to the students?
Nowadays, so often I prefer younger people to do it, rather to have their own vision as well. And survive while they're doing their artwork or from their artwork. So you really need to be quite passionate to be poor enough to be an artist, or the other way around. There are very few artists that actually live from their earnings, from their photograph, from their work.
Do you think it's important that we do have photographers like yourself that are capturing New Zealand at certain stages of development? And you're, as we said, you're actually coming back to reconnect, but is it important that we do have people, I guess, capturing New Zealanders?
If the photos are not taken, then you have no record. I think really it's not so much perhaps Christchurch, but in Germany and all over Europe. The photos really helped to reconstruct. And if you go now to Germany, for instance, the big towns, they're all rebuilt from the pictures that were somehow still in family archives, really.
I guess everyone's got a camera on them now, with most phones having cameras. Do you think that's producing better photography, or are there always going to be people with that eye for composition and light?
Yes, I feel the tool is not the important thing. It's really what people do with it. So whether it is a paintbrush or anyway, really.
An artist is an artist?
Yes, indeed.
You've published images. You released a book last year, in fact. There are a lot more avenues, aren't there, for photographers to publish, either online or in a book?
Indeed, you can, if you really have a message and you want to have it seen, then you do it either through the internet or Facebook. If you want to show your photos that widely, but you have much more. In the 60s, it was an expensive business to publish a book. It was for the person who was publishing a big outlay, because they had to upfront initially already estimate how many sales they would make, and most books didn't get seen that widely. So nowadays, I've had more say in the last book, in the layout, in how I wanted it, and what message I wanted to put out there.
And the Full Circle exhibition of Arns Westra's iconic images continues until Friday the 24th of March at the Southland Institute of Technology's Raw Gallery on Don Street. A new policy aimed at making our roads safer for cyclists, walkers and drivers and improve the health and well-being of our school children was launched by the Green Party today. The Safe Walking and Cycling to School plan requires $200 million of new infrastructure investment. The Greens plan to invest $50 million a year for 4 years, with local authorities in conjunction with schools able to draw on for walking and cycling infrastructure so children can safely travel to school independently. In 1989, half of New Zealand kids cycled or walked to school and only a third came by car. Today, these numbers have reversed, and each morning Kiwis make 250,000 car trips just to drop children at school. Vocalist Michelle Lang was last night named Southland Entertainer of the Year. The 4 other nominees were Brian Townley, Simon Galt, Simon Thompson and Cheryl Anderson.
Probably the first time I really started thinking about singing was when I did a musical theatre production at high school, and from then just auditioned for the IMT productions, and it developed from there. Got the bug and I didn't want to stop doing them, so musical theatre, really strong background in that, and branched out into some band work after school. I think I was about 18, joined the band Bliss with Simon Galt.
Right, and he was up for the award as well.
He was, yes. It was nice to be performing on the same stage with him again.
Yeah, let's talk about those other artists. There is a great overall standard of performers in Southland, isn't there, for that small population block?
Absolutely. I was just in awe watching them all. I mean, not only the nominees, but all the other performers on the night as well. It was, outstanding. People need to know how good our talent is down here. If
you had a choice, what is your favourite format? Is it the musical theatre or the performing in front of a live audience in a club or in a concert?
It's all so different. I love it all. Musical theatre is, I love to be joining with it's like a big family. It's just such a cool feeling to have all these people performing on stage at one time, and I like to hide behind the character that I'm playing. And then you got your pub gigs or doing weddings, and it's just, you can have that really personal one-on-one sort of feeling with audiences, or it's just so different, every aspect of it.
Next up on Sport, we catch up with new White Ferns cricket coach Warren Lees, and courtesy of the Herald, we check in with the Blues after their loss in South Africa. From the news team, good night.